Welcome to the Code with Jason meetup. It's just me and my friend Guillaume today. Welcome, Guillaume. Thanks for being here. Okay, so I shall share my screen and I'll describe what we're gonna be doing today. Okay, so here's what we did last time. And remind me, Guillaume, were you here on last week, a week ago, Sunday? Were you in that session? I don't remember.
I was on Wednesday, and I think you were working on the CLI for SaturnCI.
Yeah, okay, great. Great. By the way, that must have been pretty late for you, like midnight. Maybe we even talked
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that. I don't remember.
yeah. It was midnight, so midnight for from midnight to 1 p.m. 1 a.m. Sorry.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So I always like to leave a loose end hanging before I end my work. So that next time I come to it, I can easily remember what I was working on. So I see this comment that says, for some reason, our credentials aren't working. Um, and let me actually back up and give a little background for anybody who's not familiar. What I'm working on is a project called SaturnCI, which is a CI platform that I've been working on. And I spend very little time working on this. I basically only work on it during the Code with Jason meetup sessions. And so I want to make my work as efficient as it can possibly be. And right now there's kind of a problem where the feedback loops are too long. Like I'll kick off a CI build and I'll have to wait like 5 minutes before I know if it worked or if there's a problem or what. Um, and so I'm trying to shorten that feedback loop. And it's also a bit inconvenient because when I kick off a build, it spawns a couple virtual machines. And if I want to SSH into the machines, I have to go into the DigitalOcean dashboard and click around on a few things, and it's just inconvenient. And so, pardon me, I'm a little bit sick today. And so, um, and so I want to build a CLI tool to make these things a bit more convenient. What I'm thinking is like I could kick off a build here, and then on the CI tool, I could do, for example, SaturnCI builds list. This isn't going to work, but we do builds list, and then I see the list of builds, and I could do like, I don't know, what might be like build ABC123 SSH. And then when I do that, it just SSHs into one of the machines associated with that build. So that's what we're shooting for. But right now, we have this problem where the credentials aren't working for some reason. So let's try to figure that one out. So here's my CLI executable. We're initializing this, we're instantiating an object called SaturnCI client, or we're making an instance of SaturnCI client. We're passing it this certain username and password. First, let me just verify that these values are what I think they are. Okay, so pry isn't working. Can I just do gem install pry? Oh, I have to do require pry. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to do env. Well, I'll just copy this actually. Okay, my user, my password. All right, that looks to be what I expect. And then if I go to my API, um, controllers, API, here we go. So I'm doing this basic HTTP auth. I'm trying to think if I can intercept this somehow. Let's see. Let's look at what endpoint we're hitting. SaturnCI client. Looks like we're hitting the builds endpoint. So I'll look at the builds controller. Okay, so I'm gonna put a binding.pry here. That might actually be too late in the process. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I have to go over to here. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, I'm gonna look at these same values. Okay, username is my user. My user and my password. And I'm kind of surprised that it gets to this point because if our authentication is denied, it doesn't seem like we'd get here. So maybe there's actually something else going on, and this message we're giving is actually misleading. So we're doing this basic auth and getting the response. Let's check the response code and take this pry out of here. I don't know if this new pry is even going to work or not. I might need to require pry again. Yeah, okay. And I'm going to take this out of here too. Okay, require pry. Whoops. Okay. Response. Oh, huh. Yeah, it's not 200, it's 200. Okay, let's try it now. Okay, great. Um, but it's not exactly 200, it's this thing. Um, what if we do this? Oh, interesting. Okay, so let's do this again. Res response.code. 200, yeah. Okay, so that works. Maybe it's the JSON.parse. JSON.parse response. Yeah, it is in the JSON.parse. Interesting. Okay. What is the response? Hmm. Yeah, there's not really a response there. Oh yeah, that's not surprising. We're not like returning anything. See, it's here. We're not returning anything. Um okay, so let's do this. Um builds actually. Okay, render JSON build.all. Let's see what that does. Oh, there's no content. That's weird. Okay. What if I just render like an empty array? Yeah, interesting. Okay. Time to get some help from I was gonna say time to get some help from ChatGPT, but maybe not quite yet. Let's add a test for this builds controller if there's not one already. Yeah, it doesn't look like there is one. Or there is one. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to change this from it works to it returns a 200 response. And we'll also say it returns a list of builds. And of course, I'll have to create a build. Let's do that here. Before create build. And I don't know what I'm expecting in the response. And I'm going to do JSON dot parse response. And I'm going to do just like some random stuff because I know it's not going to equal that. And I'm going to look at the real response and that'll tell me what I need to put in my test. Okay, yeah, not too surprising. It gives us a similar error saying no implicit conversion of blah, blah, blah to string. So now I'm going to get some help from ChatGPT. Okay, let's see what it says. And I shall blow my nose while I'm waiting for this. Based on the output you've provided, directly parse blah, 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 without converting it into a string. Oh, response.body. Maybe that's my mistake there. Okay. Whoops, what did I do? Okay, dot body. Let's see what happens with this. Okay, it's a bit different. Wonderful. Okay, so let's just grab something in there. Let's see. When we do SaturnCI build list on the command line, what kind of stuff would we be interested in? We'd be interested in the start time. So let's assert for that. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Response body equals that. And we'll say expect response body created at, whoops, to equal, I'm just gonna do one of these again. And I think this isn't even right because we need to get like the first item. So maybe like that. Okay, that's actually great. Because I was expecting a timestamp. So let's hard code the created at here. 2020 01 01, just to pick an arbitrary date and time. Actually, I should probably put a time here. We'll say 01 o'clock, like that. We'll see what that looks like in the test. Okay, great. Now I shall copy this. Okay. So I wanted this to be hard coded so that I can see and make the connection. You know, I could have done build.created at, but then it might be a little bit mysterious. So I wanted to be able to see, oh, okay, this time it's the same time, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay. So that passes. Let's just run all the tests and see what happens. And obviously this is wrong because this will give you all the builds for every user. Obviously very inappropriate, but I'm not going to worry about that for the moment. Oh, we got this fry in here. We don't want that, of course. Okay, Saturn client. Let's take that out of there. And everything passes, but if we do this, we get an error. So that tells me we're like missing a test. Spec Saturn client. Okay, this is an authentication spec. Okay, so we have a case of invalid credentials and we want to add valid credentials. Okay, I don't want to bite off too much. Let's maybe commit what we've done so far. I always review my changes before I commit. No surprises there. Um, how would I characterize what we did? I could say fix credentials. Excuse me. Fix credentials issue. Um, okay. Now let's turn our attention back to that test. Saturn client authentication spec. And we're covering the case of invalid credentials, but we also want to cover the case of valid credentials. And of course, doesn't output a graceful error message. It gives us, I don't know what I want to say. I'll just put it works for now. I can change that later. By the way, test descriptions, I often just put it works because I'm not sure exactly how to characterize what I'm about to do. And I find that it's often much easier to come back at the end and fill in the description than to do it at the beginning. So that's why I often start with just it works. Okay, now we're gonna return a 200. Um, okay, and we'll do this. We'll say valid username, valid password. I'm just gonna run this and see what happens. Okay. Hmm. We get that error. So here's how we can turn this into a failing test. We can do expect this stuff not to raise error. And I expect that to fail. Expected no exception, got type error, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. That's exactly what I wanted. I'll open this client class and I'll replace JSON.parse with, sorry, I'll replace response with response.body. Okay, it's kind of expecting that to work. Let's see what happened. Unexpected token, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's not actually like returning anything meaningful. Um, yeah, we need to return a body. I'm gonna get ChatGPT's help here because I don't remember the syntax. Instead of just status 200, how can I return a body with an empty array? I will continue my tradition of blowing my nose while I'm waiting for ChatGPT. Okay. Logical enough. It just says body, empty array. Okay. Maybe I want to format this a little differently here, because otherwise it's gonna like not fit. Okay. Okay. That passes. So I could have just fixed this and put response.body without adding a test, but the I've forced myself to, how do I want to word this? I added a test that fails when this isn't working, which I think is a better way to solve that problem. So instead of saying it works, I'll say it does not raise an error. Wonderful. Now if we run all the tests, let's see if they all pass. I can't think of any reason why they would not. Okay. Fixed response.body issue in Saturn CI client. Okay. Now, as I've been pushing, has it been kicking off builds? It has. Wonderful. Okay. So now what I want is when I do SaturnCI build list. Oh, very interesting. It says bad credentials. Um, huh. Okay. So it must be, I must have done this last time and I just forgot. I must have exported. Yeah, I totally did. Yeah, I exported the username and password. Okay, so let's just remember to do that over in this pane here. Okay, so it actually does give me the builds, but this is like way too much info. Um, yeah, it's too much info and too many builds. Okay, let's think about what we actually want. So when I run SaturnCI build list or builds list, what I want to see is something like this. I want to see them in reverse chronological order. Let's do like 3 of them. Maybe let's put commit message. And before that, let's put branch. SaturnCI client. Okay. And maybe we want a tiny bit more spacing here. Okay. Um, let's okay. Let's actually add one more thing. Let's add the commit. Oops. Okay. Okay, so let's do this for starters. So let's figure out how to write a test that expects this. All right, specs Saturn client. Okay, so this is the authentication spec. We want to write a spec for like the build list. So let's do that. Let's create something called build list spec. Build list. Okay. And I usually start running the test right from this stage, even though I know nothing's going to happen, just to get that feedback loop started. You might be surprised how many times you catch some kind of problem. Um, okay. So I definitely want to initialize a client. Again, I'm going to say something like it works. And I'm just going to run that much. And we do see some kind of error. Okay, it's making a request that we have not stubbed. All right, so let's stub that request. I can see there's going to be a problem with this, but I won't deal with that right at the moment. Okay. Also, there's another problem. We're like hard coding localhost 3000 into all this stuff. That's no good. You can see it's hard coded here. So actually, before we do any of this stuff, let's fix that. So in the spirit of atomic units of work, I'm going to stash this. Then I'm going to do this other thing. Um, SaturnCI client. Okay. Now, I think we actually want to pass in the host here. Do we? How is this going to work? Yeah, I think so. Um, so we say host, blah, blah, blah. And for the moment, I'll just hard code it here. In here, we can put host. See if that works. Actually, sorry, I don't want to run that. I just want to run spec. Is that what I want to do? No. Oh yeah. Okay, SaturnCI. Okay. Yeah, apparently it's just this one test. Okay, expected exception with bad credentials, missing keyword host, of course. Um, okay, so in the authentication spec, we're missing the host. Whoops. Okay, so I'll run that again. Okay, and that passes now. Okay, and I'm gonna unhard code this and make it like that. Okay, and that behaves the same. Okay. And we can maybe make some kind of default host. Maybe we can just say host by default is localhost 3000. Then we don't have to bother with this stuff. See if that works. Yeah, and it feels funny to have this here. Let's put it here because I feel like arguments with defaults should go at the end. And let's actually do this. Default host equals this host default host. There we go. For one, that makes it feel a little less arbitrary. And for two, we can do this. We can replace this with SaturnCI client. Excuse me. default host. Whoops. See if that works. Now we don't have to hard code localhost 3000. And if we ever change it, it'll just change everywhere. Okay. Review the changes. Okay. I'll say fixed host issue. Okay, let's see how our builds are doing. Okay, things are passing. That's good. Okay, let me remind myself what I was doing before now. Okay, so we're looking for this output. Okay, now here, instead of this, I can say CLI. Pardon me. Okay, SaturnCI client dot no client default host. Okay, now let's run this and see what happens. Okay. Okay. Now we can expect it to return something like this. Yeah, and what do I mean by it? That's a good question. We can expect the builds method to return something like that, or to output something like that. Okay, we'll say client equals, and in here we'll say expect client. I'm going to copy this here to output the following. And I'm doing this because I'm going to give this to ChatGPT. Change my comments into working code. By the way, while we're waiting for this, I will say, ladies and gentlemen, that I've decided to start doing these sessions not just twice a week, but every day, actually. So roughly every weekday, Monday through Friday, I'm planning to do live coding sessions like this. Stay tuned for more info. Okay, so it's wanting me to do this builds response thing. I'm not going to do that for reasons we'll see shortly. Okay, that's not new. I'm just ignoring this entire block then. Okay, this is what I was interested in. This expected output stuff here. Okay. So we'll grab that. Fix the indentation. Client dot builds. Oh, I accidentally got rid of this. And I don't know why it put output way up here. Yeah, that doesn't even need to be. Temp var was kind of pointless. Okay. So I'm going to run this and it will of course fail. Yep. Okay, and there's no possible way it could return this anyway, or it could output this anyway. because we don't have any setup data that equals that stuff. So let's add some. Um, let's do this. Okay, before we can say create build commit message this down here. Didn't copy it. Must have been my mistake. Okay. Okay. Let me kind of start over here. Okay, this must be the commit hash, I believe I called it. I think I called this the branch name. Commit message. Okay, and I feel this is actually more logical in this order. And let me even, let's do this. Let's ask ChatGPT, swap the commit and branch columns. That way I don't have to do it myself. Okay, wonderful. What a shining example of the exact kind of thing AI is useful for. Okay. Okay, wonderful. Now let's see what happens. Get some errors. Factory not registered build. Bullshit. Let's take a look. Spec factory builds. Yeah. I guess we're not including spec helper. Require spec helper. Or sorry, Rails helper, right? Okay, what do we get now? Okay, we got an empty array, and so it failed, of course. Okay, let's make it not return an empty array, or rather output. Let's make it not output an empty array. Okay. Let's just do that for starters and see what happens. Okay, it said expected blah 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 got nil. I'm a little surprised that it's nil. Because there should be a response body. But here is perhaps the problem that I was referring to a few minutes ago. So we stub this request to return an empty array because it hits the same endpoint twice. It's once to check the credentials and a second time to actually list the builds. So I think we maybe want to we want to somehow bypass the credential checking or like stub that and then I'm not sure what, but we at least want to bypass the credential checking. Okay, so as I look at this, just an observation, I find it a little bit hard to understand. This method is fairly noisy. Maybe we can refactor this to make it clearer what's going on. But in the spirit of atomic units of work, maybe let's do that as a separate refactoring. Okay, so this first chunk is only, all this is just for authentication checking. So maybe let's do this. Check authentication. 'Cause, 'Authentication. 'Cause, 'Authentication. 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 'Authentication No, hang on. Okay, so we have this builds endpoint. And the way we're checking authentication is doing this. And yeah, it's like it should check the authentication on every single request. So let's maybe do something like this. Okay, maybe let's create um a new concept here. Okay, let's see. I'm calling this the SaturnCI client. Does that make sense? Is it not the SaturnCI CLI client or the API client? I don't know. I'm just going to call it client for now because I'm not sure that a different name would be an improvement. Okay, SaturnCI. Hmm. Saturn's okay. It's like a SaturnCI client, and we have a SaturnCI client request. SaturnCI client request. Okay. I might decide later that I don't like this name, but for the moment, I'm going to call it a client request. Or no, I'm going to call it the SaturnCI client API request. Um, Client API request. Let's try that. Um, Actually, I think I prefer just API request. Okay, so I just installed NerdTree finally after like 15 years of using Vim or 20. Um, and I want to know if I can rename a file using NerdTree. Man, this is inconvenient. Okay, I'm not going to do this right now. I'm going to instead just rename it like this. Client API request, I'll rename it to just API request. Okay. Whoops. Okay, so we have this API request. And so for builds, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say request equals, no, I'm going to say API request equals API request dot new. I'm going to put all this stuff in here. And I'm going to say API request dot, I don't want to say send. Hmm. Okay, let's ask ChatGPT. If I have an instance of something called request that represents an API request, and I want to have a method for sending the request, like request.send, for example, what's a good method name? Send seems like a bad choice because there's already a native Ruby method called send. I guess I'll call it execute. Okay, I'll create a method called execute. and I will pass it a URI. Um, let's see. Yeah, okay. I'll pass it a URI. You know what? I'm even gonna go. I'm just gonna do this because that's all I really feel like I should have to specify. Okay, and then we'll call it endpoint. Okay, and then here we'll put endpoint. Again, we're of course missing host. Um, so I think I'll pass myself. And so here I'll put client. Whoops, not Clint. Okay. And here we can do client.host. We can do client.username, client.password. All right. I'm sure I made a mistake somewhere, but let's run this and see what happens. Okay, what do we got? Uninitialized constant blah 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 API request. Oh yeah, that's because we have to require it. Require relative API request. Okay. Undefined method host, not too surprising. Um, we can do adder reader host. Um, bad credentials. Oh, undefined method username. Okay, username, and of course it's gonna come across password too. So I'll just add that now. Oh, and it passed. I'm surprised that it passed. I was expecting to have to move this stuff. But I can see why it worked. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. Yep, okay. Okay, so now I've encapsulated all the API request stuff here. It's abstracted away. And actually instead of execute, I should call it response. And I'm gonna say response right here. Okay. And actually I'm just gonna do this. Response equals that. And we'll do that and we'll see what happens. Okay, error for some reason. Undefined method response. Oh yeah, got to rename it. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. So I think this is much easier to understand. Maybe. We'll find out in a minute when we try to apply it to our purposes. Okay. Now I'm going to commit this. First, I'll just run all the tests. And how's this stuff doing? Okay, good. Interesting. That one took like 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes. Okay, that all passed. We can say we created the API request class. Okay. And by the way, Guillaume, I know we're about at the 1 hour mark. If you have to hop off at any point, no problem. I think I'm gonna keep going for at least a few minutes though. Okay, let's see. Let's actually open back up that API request class and do a little refactoring. This part can be abstracted away into a method. We can call it URI. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. I just want to run the relevant tests. There we go. Okay. And then we can let's see. Okay, so we're creating a request and we're doing the basic auth thing and then we're getting the response. Okay. So maybe let's do this. Okay. And then we can maybe actually do this. Not sure if that'll work, but it did work. Okay. Okay, so here maybe we can do that tap request do, whoops, do, and maybe that'll make it a little more elegant looking. Okay. And then we get our response. I don't really like the fact that we have this method called response and then this variable called response also. Hmm. I don't know what else to call it though. That's fine. Okay. And similar deal here, we can do like dot tap do response. Okay. Okay, so let's evaluate this a little bit. We're getting our response here and parsing it. So now we don't have to care how the request and response happen. But then if we're interested, we can look here and we can see, oh, how does the response happen? We make this request. You know, maybe we can do this. Um, Maybe we can call it send request because this is a little bit noisy and hard to understand. Okay. Send request. There we go. Let's see if that works. I'm not sure it will. Okay, it did. Okay. Send request tab do response. Raise bad credentials if the code is not 200. Okay, great. Um, so then we don't have to care about the details of how the request happens. But if we're interested, we can look here. And actually, I don't find it beneficial to have URI as a separate method. I think it would actually be clearer as a temp variable. And I made some mistake. URI. Undefined. Huh. That is surprising. Okay, let's just undo it back to the point where it works. Okay, I'll commit this because I don't know what's going on with that other thing. I'll just say refactoring. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. URI is needed in def request. Okay, let's take a look at that. Def request. Oh, I see. Okay, I'm confused now. We got send request and we got request. Oh, I see. Okay. So maybe we don't want a temp fair. Thanks for pointing that out for me, Galen. Okay. That was a tiny refactoring, but let's commit that. Okay. I'm like plenty happy enough with this for now. Maybe we'll come back and look at it with fresh eyes later and see some further improvements, but I think that's good for now. Okay. So I just brought back our other changes and we have some kind of merge conflict. Um, see what that's all about. Oh, yeah, of course. Okay. Okay, I'm going to open this test file back up, run this. Okay, and we got an empty array. Okay. Okay, now maybe we're in a better position to fix this. So SaturnCI client, it's making this request and getting the response. And by the way, we can clean this up even further, I think. Um, response equals request builds. Let's do that. And then we can have a method called request. Okay. So how do we get this to do what we want? I think we have to. Do we have to stub the response? I'm not sure I want to do that because I want to test the actual. I guess there's two separate things. There's testing the response and then testing the formatting of the response. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and here we're just testing the formatting of the response. Okay, so I don't actually want to do that. We do want to stub the body. Okay. So let's do this. Let's move this setup into the setup area. Okay. I think that's a little bit easier to read that way. Then we can just see the expected output and we can ignore this setup here. Okay, body. Let's do expected body equals JSON with content matching the expected output. We'll even say JSON array. Okay, and then I'll ask ChatGPT for some help here. Fill in the comment with real code. Okay, great. It's not getting the stuff. It's not getting all the names right, but that's fine. I can correct those manually. That's not a big deal. Wonderful. Okay. Expected body. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can just replace this entire thing. Okay. Okay, and I want to replace branch with branch name. And I want to replace commit with commit hash. Okay. Now let's see what happens. Okay, getting closer. So instead of the formatted response, we just see this raw response. Okay. So now I'm going to give this to ChatGPT. I'm going to give my test to ChatGPT. I'm going to give this output to ChatGPT. I guess I'll just do it like this. Then I'll say, help me change the build method to make the test pass. Okay. Let's see what happens when I paste this in. I don't have high hopes, but we'll see. Builds. Um, where's the part where it actually outputs it? Yeah. Where's the part where it actually outputs the output? Huh. I think it's still not outputting it. Um, that's dumb. Okay. Let's let's just do it ourselves. And we might have to wrap up soon because it's getting late. Okay. So here's what I think I want. I think I want to have a new concept called, I don't know, we'll call it an output table or something for the moment. Output table. It's not a good name, but a better name will probably become clearer a little bit. Okay. And we can say output table equals output table dot new. And then we can pass it just JSON. And actually we can just do this. There. And that'll of course give us an error. Yep. Okay. We have to require it. Okay, wrong number of arguments. It's not expecting any arguments. Okay, expected all that, got nil. We'll do def 2s, and we'll just output the content. And now we should get that same error we got a minute ago. Oh no, it's still nil. Interesting. That is very interesting. What if I just do puts and then a random string here? Still says got nil. Interesting. Oh, expected client. Yeah, we don't want to, we don't want to expect this for the return value, do we? We want to expect that it outputs this. We don't want to expect that as the return value. We want to expect that to be sent to standard out. Okay, let's try that. See what happens. Okay, great. All right, so let's take away that debug output and try this. Okay, that's what I expected. And do I need the 2s? Apparently we do need the 2s. Okay. That's fine. Okay. So now we can go to work here. And we can do, for example, content dot map do item, and maybe we should call content items instead. And we can say, we can just grab the branch name for starters. Okay, so what does that do for us? Okay, great. And then maybe we can add, okay, let's see. Okay, I'll worry about the headings in a second. But we can add two spaces, and then we can say item commit hash. Oh, oh, yeah, okay. Okay, and then commit message. Okay, I don't understand what just happened. Okay. The diff is just different colors now for some weird reason, apparently. Okay. And I'm actually going to change this. I want the spacer to be spacer equals 2 empty spaces. Oh, and now that I'm seeing this, I think I want to instead do something like this. Well, you know what? And we don't even really need the spacer in this case. We can just do that. Okay. Now the harder part is we want to add the headers. Okay, so let's try this. Def formatted items. Okay, and for the heading, we can say branch, commit, commit message. And obviously the spacing will be wrong. Um, oh yeah, we want join. Okay, and actually, let's do this. This is probably a smarter way to do this. You can do that, dot join. Let's do this, dot join spacer. There we go. Dot join new line. Okay, let's see what happens with that. Okay, great. And let's actually have a separate method called header. And we can say header formatted items dot join new line. Okay, we're getting much closer. Now we just have to figure out how to get the spacing right. Okay. So we have three things here. Okay. Branch plus commit plus commit message. Okay, obviously that's going to totally not be right. Yep. Okay, but we need to use that like L-just or R-just or whatever method it is. I don't remember what those are or how they work. Explain L-just. Explain L-just to me. Okay. Here's what I think we want. I think, okay, L-just. Let's do branch.L-just integer in the padded string. I guess we just need the integer. Okay. So SaturnCI client, let's see how long that is. 15. Okay. So let's put 15. and just see what happens as an experiment. Okay, that gets us close. You know, it's 15 because it needs a spacer too. Okay, now that's exactly right, but obviously instead of hard coding 15, we want it to be the length of the longest branch name. So we can do, I'm making this up right now, length of longest um, branch name. Okay, and we can call this length of longest e. Replace this with working code. We'll let ChatGPT do this part for us. Place my comment. Oh, interesting. That's even more concise than I expected. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, that looks right. Um, Now let's do the same for commit and commit message. And let's do it like this. Commit hash. Okay, and let's just do that much so far. Okay, so far so good, possibly. Commit message. Whoops. Okay, something's not quite right, but I can't tell what the difference is. Oh, I think I want strip. There we go. Great. Okay, and before I commit this, um, we can make this a bit more DRY, of course. Um, we can call this column heading, perhaps. And it'll take a, say it takes text and key. Okay, so we can replace this with column heading, branch, branch name. And I actually think this should be in the other order. Branch name, branch, commit hash, commit, commit message, commit message. Oops. Actually, I'll call this attribute and label. Okay, let's see if I manage to do that without messing anything up. No. Okay. Okay. Wonderful. But one thing I don't like is it actually output the output. So let's see if there's a way to get that to not happen. Is there a way to get my test to swallow standard out so it doesn't pollute my test output? Maybe I don't want to worry about that right now. Okay. Um, and so if it works, I want to say it formats the output to a table. Okay, now I'm going to run all my tests and see what happens. We got a failure. Okay, interesting. Um, yeah. Okay, since there was nothing returned, it can't output this table. Okay. Okay, authentication spec. Okay. Okay, so what's the response in this case? Oh yeah. Acquire pride. Response. Okay, response dot body. Yeah, JSON dot parse response dot body. Okay, so it's the case when the items are blank that it causes trouble. Length of longest attribute. Okay. Return, whoops. Return 0 unless items dot any. Okay. I'll run all the tests. I feel like this should be called attribute now to match the other one. And since I made that change, let me run all the tests again. Okay. Um, Let me get this out of here. I'll review my changes. No surprises. Okay. Get build output table working. Okay, now here's the moment of truth, and I think the chances of this actually working are very low, but we will give it a try. Okay. Wow. I don't even understand what just happened. It gives me like a get log output. That is bizarre. Okay. Well, maybe. Okay. I don't want to do this next time because I don't want to save this to next time because we're so close to the ultimate goal. Let's see if we can just figure this out real quick. Oh, I see. Yeah, I don't want to do this. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So it's outputting some stuff. and it vaguely resembles what we want, but oddly it has the branch name and then like a oh yeah, I guess that is the commit hash. But we want like the abbreviated commit hash. But this commit hash is fine for now. But why is it giving us this git log? That is strange. Okay, let's find the top of this thing. Oh, okay. Okay, so we have this. Oh, we get squash commit of the following. Okay. So we want to like truncate the commit message. Okay. Okay, so I think we can do this pretty quickly. Okay. Um API build controller. Okay, so we already are like doing some of this stuff in the view here. So, well, actually, you know what? Let's not worry about doing it this way. We'll clean this up next time, but just for getting it working right now, let's do this. I'm not going to commit this yet. Say output table. Okay. Commit message. Um, First we'll do commit hash 0 to 7. Okay, that made that smaller. And then commit message 0 to, I don't know, 20, let's say. Okay. Let's actually go 40. Okay, and let's only show like the most recent 10 or something like that. Okay. Where do I go? SaturnCI client. Um, okay. So how do I get just the most recent 10? You know, maybe I should just do that in the output table. Okay. This is weird. Oh, I see. All right. One more thing. Let's take these values and do like G sub, something like that. Does that do it? Yeah. Okay. Oh, and this is like messed up. Interesting. All right, so we'll have to fix that, but this is like, oh yeah, and this is messed up too. Oh, I see. Each one of these needs an L-just. Okay, we'll have to build that into the test. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll save that for next time, but this is kind of neat. This shows us like these last 10 commits. This is like the spirit of what I was going for. Um yeah, this is great. Okay, I'm happy with this. I think this is a good place to leave it for today. And then when we pick back up next time, I can do a git diff and I can see, oh yeah, I did all this stuff in like a crappy kind of way last time, and now we can like fix it and do it a better way. And we can do this, and I'll be reminded, oh yeah, like The alignment is not quite right, so we'll have to fix the alignment. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Guillaume, any comments or insights or questions or anything before we hop off?
Um, Not really. It was nice to follow what you're doing, and uh, I think for me it's important to watch this kind of meetup because I see how other experienced developers are doing stuff, and I think it's nice to compare how people are doing stuff to learn from them.
Yeah, nice. Well, I'm glad you got something out of it. Dear YouTube viewer, thank you and goodbye. Oh, sorry, one very last thing before we go. I'm trying to remember to mention this in every video. I work as a consultant. I help people clean up their code and stuff like that. So far, I mainly work with CTOs and VPs of engineering and such. And so if you think you would like help with something like this, you can contact me at jason@codewithjason.com and we can talk about working together. Anyway, dear YouTube viewer, thanks for watching. Guillaume, thanks for being here. Merci, au revoir.
Au revoir. See you.